This show is sponsored by Mighty Capital, the go-to venture capital firm for product-first companies like Airbnb and Amplitude. Learn why they are dubbed the best value for the dollar invested at mighty.capital. I'm SC Moadi, founder and chair of Products That Count, a 501c3 nonprofit engaging over 500,000 product managers. Our mission is simple: help you build great products through groundbreaking research, prestigious awards, and top-notch programming like this award-winning Top 1% podcast. Whether you're aiming to boost your career or turn your product team into a competitive advantage, this is your gateway. Visit productsthatcount.org and begin your product leadership journey. This particular series is hosted by one of the first chief product officers in the world, Lenny, and each episode is a masterclass in product leadership. Renee, over to you.
Hello, today I have with me Sabrina Ellis. She is the Chief Product Officer of Pinterest. First of all, Sabrina, I want to say congratulations on being a finalist for our top CPO award this year. And it's really great to have you.
It's wonderful to be here. Thank you so much.
Well, listen, I've really been looking forward to our conversation and I can't wait to dive in. Before I do that, why don't we start 60 seconds or less? Just a quick introduction, a little bit about Pinterest, although a lot of us know about Pinterest, but anything you want to share about Pinterest and your role there?
Sure. I'll give a little brief on Pinterest. Hopefully everyone's tried it out. But, Pinterest is a visual search and discovery platform. And we really want to help inspire people, create new ideas, and then really shop those products and bring that inspiration to life. So I am the Chief Product Officer, and in that role, I lead product management, product marketing, and also our design teams. So really focused on the overall user experience and how we can bring those magical experiences to life. We also actually, my team also looks at the business side as well, but we've got over 500 million monthly unique users now, and we really just want to build a positive place for them.
Wow, 500 million. That's hard to believe. I remember once upon a time when Pinterest was a place where I would pin recipes. I
People
still
still
go
do that.
back to it for those recipes from years and years ago. So that's awesome. Well, great. It's great to have you here. Everybody has their stories and on product. We're all super passionate about what we do, and a lot of our journeys end up kind of defining who we are as leaders. I guess I would love to hear like a story around a high impact product that you worked on that really kind of launched you and really defined who you are as a product leader.
When I think about things that are kind of biggest impact in the world, I actually go back to launching a Pixel phone. And the reason is because if we go back to before Pixel phone was launched by Google, I think our expectations for smartphone photography were pretty low and pretty mediocre. We all carried a phone and a camera because it was a phone. And I think we challenged that and really reached from the user layer all the way down into the hardware and the firmware layer to change the perspective of what a smartphone camera would be. And I like to say that we changed smartphone photography for the overall industry, because while not everyone may have bought and experienced the wonderful photography on Pixel, we did apparently motivate some other OEMs to hire, I heard 1,000 people and had them working 6 days a week until they were able to get close to the new standard of what smartphone photography was. And so I really look at that, and you watch everyone and how they are taking pictures, communicating all of these things with the devices with them all the time. I feel pretty proud that that's something, it's an impact that we changed.
It's funny you say that, but it really has transformed how we think about photography. A quick side story. I don't know if you remember a small little company called Danger.
Oh,
I
yes.
worked on that product, and we did the very first. It was a plug-in camera at the time, and I still remember people saying to me, like, "Why do you want a camera on your phone?"
And now look, they can't imagine without it. I do know some early folks at Danger too, and I feel like a lot of you are really the trendsetters and breaking through what could happen with a mobile device.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. But yes, those were fun times. Those were fun times, and I can see how you would feel that that was a defining moment. So, when you kind of think about, we all have strengths, or you wouldn't be in your role. But what would you say is your superpower? Like, what's the one thing that really kind of sets you apart as a leader and has enabled you to you know make it all the way to the top, especially for such an iconic brand like Pinterest?
Maybe I'll split these, and maybe this is not fair, but I feel like when we're looking at the product side, I mean, I really enjoy connecting with people, and I think trying to bring that together with my background, my childhood. I'm a Silicon Valley kid. Unlike many people who are transplants to maybe the San Francisco Bay Area, I grew up in a household where I have a computer science degree and I'm the least technical in my family. So having that upbringing and love of technology, and also my interest and curiosity about people and consumers, trying to bring those together has been something on the consumer side that I've just been really passionate about how we can actually use technology to improve people's lives. On the organizational side, I think my strength, and many folks would say that in the projects that I've built, is really taking large organizations and actually making them more efficient and productive. I always say that as product managers, our role is often to have a clarity on what goal we're trying to set and having that discussion around whether that's the right goal or not, but really spending the time to have that discussion there so that we can communicate to the last person in the building, understanding what that goal is. And so they have their expertise. They know every morning how can they take that expertise and contribute to delivering that goal.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Any fun, I always find people with superpowers surround themselves with rituals that we can learn with. Any fun rituals associated with your superpower that really brings everything to life?
Well, it's kind of funny you say the word fun. Even when I was an executive at Google, people used to ask me, "What's your top priority?" And I'm like, "Are we having fun?" And it was funny because people actually said to me, they said, "You're the only executive that ever says that." And I'm like, "Yeah, because maybe that doesn't sound as executive that you're supposed to be." But I'm very passionate about it because when we're building products for people, and I just know that we are not going to build magical, wonderful projects and experiences unless we're all having fun doing them. So there is something to that I often will ask the team. I'm like, are we having fun? Because what is it that's keeping us from that? What are the things that we need to get through so we can get in that mode?
I love that. Um, uh, are you having fun? I'm just
I
kidding.
am having the time of my life,
Yeah.
actually. I really am. It has been so much. Look, Pinterest is, there's a few things happening here that I've probably sought for my whole career, and I haven't been able to. One of them is you've always trying to chase the newer, the younger, the newest audience online. I mean, I've done this through many times in my career where you try to build a product targeting at, for earlier in my career, it was targeting the millennials. And when that audience senses that you're building for them or trying to target them, they're kind of like, no, you can't chase me. But what's happening at Pinterest is different. Gen Z is coming and they're choosing it. And I think it's a very intentional choice, somewhat because I think they're seeing Pinterest as different from some of the alternatives that they are having in the market. And so seeing that where the youngest generation is coming to our product and telling us how positive it makes them feel, that's a ton of fun. And seeing that they're more engaged than other people, again, not something I've experienced before. Usually it's the earliest cohorts that are the most engaged. And somehow ours is the newest ones are the youngest and the most engaged. And so that's something that, yeah, I've been chasing that my whole career. It feels really good. And really, I tell my team, I'm like, this is magic. We need to really lean into it, understand that user base, and make sure that we're living up to their expectations.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that that they're more engaged than the early cohorts. Why? Why do you think that is? Is it because you have such an amazing product team?
I think it's a mixture of things. If you look at what Pinterest delivers and you go back many generations, even before technology, right? For me growing up, you're cutting pictures out of a magazine and kind of collaging and really bringing your inspiration to life and exploring things. That's an innate desire that I think happens generationally. Now, what's happening with Pinterest is we're able to offer a really magical experience to superpower that. Now all of a sudden you can, like, we might actually understand a little bit more about what you might be interested in, so we can bring even more content to you that you'll find inspirational. We'll build tools so you can collage and put those things together. It's not the ugly cutouts that I had on a poster board. Now you could actually do that online and figure out these things and then share it with other people to also inspire them. And then the last thing is now you can bring it to life. I think that's something that's really magical. It's the I like to say one of my nieces, she's having a little bit of a hard time in high school. And she has all these boards for everything from her room at home, dresses she might wear to a prom. But Charlotte also has one called Princess. And what she's done is she's literally created a board of what her whole home would look like if she were a princess. And she might not be able to buy that whole board, but she bought one lamp from it, and that kind of that brings it to life for her. So that's the type of thing that I think is really engaging for them, and it's kind of a respite from, sometimes I think it's a little tougher to be a teenager or a young adult now.
Yeah, I love that. And I also love the princess board. I might have to do that.
So
Mine might have tiaras on it, or anyway.
I
Uh,
have a tiara, so I don't judge.
oh, that's great. Well, that kind of leads me to my next question. Obviously, sometimes the hardest part of what we do as product leaders is figuring out how to set priorities. The list of things we want to do is always way longer than what we can do. And sometimes actually saying no is the more important, decision than actually saying yes. Tell me a little bit about your philosophy, how you think about setting priorities, how you align the team around the priorities.
Yeah, that is the toughest thing. I often say, and I've said this 3 times today already, so clearly I say it a lot. There is no shortage of good ideas. There are a lot of them, and that's neat. And you do, even starting from that, I do tend to look for new ideas in a few different settings. It can be that folks, as I said, are experts in their areas, and they have ideas bottoms up of what they want to do. I think another area that you're going to get new ideas from is, I like to do in the consumer space a lot of ethnographic research. Like, consumers sometimes have a hard time telling you exactly what they want. I always say enterprise, they know what they want. And they've given you a spreadsheet of how they want is overdue. Uh, Small businesses can usually tell you what their problem is, and then you can kind of figure out how to solve. Consumers, it's really important for us to understand their lives and kind of see where we might fit in. And I tend to try to be really humble about that. So with all of those, and then you bring in technology, where new technology might just unlock all new capabilities. And how can you actually bring all that, actually will create a big set of things that you might want to do. But to your point, now you've got all of that, and there's no way that anyone is staffed to do them all. So the important thing is to say, what are our overall criteria that we are trying to do? And I would say, importantly, in the next 6, 12, 18 months. And so setting those criteria to really prioritize and focus. Inevitably, every team I've walked into, and actually probably every team I'm on, I always say, we're doing too much. That I think you always feel like that. And that's probably the tendency of where I know tech companies, we tend to be. We're very passionate about really serving our end users, and we want to give them great experiences. So we try to do too many things. And I think it's really important to take that criteria of, like, hey, what is it that we want to get done in the next 6 months? What is it that we have to get done? And prioritize those. And I tend to really want to focus and align, because again, if you align, that's where you have both it may be product, it may be engineering, but how about marketing, how about legal, how about HR, everybody understanding those priorities, we're just going to deliver so much better.
Yeah. As you're talking, I'm thinking to myself, all of this is true. The other thing that I always had to be super mindful of, and I'm wondering if you have this lens as well, is short term versus long term, because there's always a short term urgent issue, right? Whether it be customer driven, whether it be competitive driven, like whatever that is. And if you're not careful, you'll just, urgent trumps strategic.
Yeah.
So how do you kind of think about like the longer term and make sure that you're not prioritizing over short term over what you need in even the midterm or long term?
Yeah, one of the things I like to look at is the balance of projects. And ideally, I think many companies have used this type of structure of, we call it kind of 70-20-10. Right? 70% of the projects are maybe just the things that you have to get done. And those can be anything from the operational keep the lights on things to short term, we've got to hit, whether it be user numbers, whether it be financial numbers, any of those targets that the company needs to operate. So I would put all of those in the 70, pretty well defined. And really in that set of projects, you've got to focus on executing incredibly well, incredibly efficiently. And frankly, it's pretty important to hit timelines as well.
Yeah.
Then there's another 20% that are more strategic, but still actually in the realm of where your overall current product market fit for your company is. And that's where I would say, if I look back a year and look at our projects, where I would say we launched a project called Collages, and that's in that space because it's in line with what end users want from Pinterest. It's creative, it's innovative, but it helps them take their inspiration and explore it. But that project, what I said for it, I'm like, you're in that 20%. What that means is I'm not pushing you to deliver numbers right now because I think that project is nascent. I think strategically it's very important for us. This whole notion of actually taking overall data, like pins, we call, the overall images, where I might love the couch and hate the coffee table. Now I can atomize, I can break it down into atoms and recreate it in a collage. That's a strategic direction that we want to go in, but I need that product to have enough room to explore, to actually gain some legs so that it can land well. So that's in that 20%. Then you might have the 10% that are quite exploratory, and that might be a whole different technology. It might be a different, even a business model. And I think you've got to give those room to explore as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Because if you don't, then something could completely bypass you. And I don't know if you use the risk lens at all, but I had a similar model, but risk led. Like this stuff is like low risk, known return, and must do. And this stuff is maybe medium risk, and then the really high risk, high return, right? So it's kind of
Yeah, I think that
always
matches up with,
fascinating.
yeah, that matches up with our 70-20-10, right? I think that the
Yeah,
10 is, and you know what? The thing with the 10 is you've got to have a lot of ideas there, and you also have to be ready to say, yeah, that was interesting. What did we learn from it? But maybe it's not what we want to pursue. You have to just be
yeah,
more in that mindset. And I think, it's tough because you know what I've also found is that sometimes you need different people working in the different areas. It's just, there are some people that are best at really executing, being efficient, hitting deadlines. And there are others that are very good at being fast prototypers, but also really not wedded to ideas and just, okay, tossing them overboard when they've gotten some new, learned a nugget from there, but maybe not for us. So I think there's personality traits that I find that match each of these better as well. The challenge is sometimes people they want to be drawn to something and you're like, actually though, what I see of you is that your personality doesn't match that well, and you may not be that successful because you get so wedded to your hypotheses.
yeah. It's always interesting when people aren't self realizing, but they'll realize more success. But that's a big part of leadership, right? Figuring out the right people for the right roles. Is kind of very very insightful. So when you um, when you think about your past, sometimes we get it right, sometimes we get it wrong, and then all of those are collective learnings that make us better today. Um, I would love to hear a story where maybe you didn't get it right,
Hmm.
and what did you learn, and how do you use that today?
I think we certainly all have those. Uh,
Many, by the way.
I'm going to reach back in the archives. I think this was back in 2004, so a while ago, but I'm working a long time. At that point, I was running Yahoo Mail, running product for Yahoo Mail, and great success in a lot of ways. I think when I started running it, we were number 3 in the world behind, I think AOL and Hotmail, and we at that point it actually moved to be number 1 in the world. Now that April 1st, what happened? Oh, as an April Fool's joke or not, Gmail launched. And so all of a sudden they upended the entire online mail service market. Right, all of a sudden they were offering huge amounts of storage. It was a very fast, lightweight interface, and so the executives came to us, and we had been already working on an overall redesign, visual redesign, as well as actually looking at changing our storage models. So I was under a tremendous amount of pressure and advice from I would say executive leaders as well as our comms and marketing team to get all that work done as fast as possible and launch it globally all at the same time. Yeah. Yeah, see, you're cringing. Why? Because that was not a good idea. But I was early in my career, and it was you were under so much pressure, and you saw that like Gmail had done this huge thing. How do we actually stay relevant? And we were a little bit scared of actually losing that number 1 spot. So we did all of that, and I think I even probably did it on a Monday, which is the worst because actually way back then people didn't have as much connectivity at home. Monday morning was the number 1 top traffic boost for Yahoo Mail because people would get into work and they'd actually check their personal mail too. So anyway, launched it all globally, took down all of Yahoo Mail. That contributed to taking down Akamai. So basically, I kind of killed the internet for a few hours, and it was not good. I mean, my lesson, I learned a lot in product and being more disciplined in respecting your current users and not being so victim to that hype. Because I think doing the right thing the right way and landing it well is much better for the long term. Unfortunately, the world may have had to suffer it through my learning.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Oh my gosh, that must have been painful. How long did it take before you got it back up and running?
I think we did it in a matter of hours because we could roll back things. But, it was fascinating way back then because you could never get on the executives' calendars because they were so busy. But you know what? When you screw up to those proportions, all of a sudden everybody was free at noon that day to kind of chew us out.
Surprise.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let me just say when you learn a lesson, you learn it with authority and in a big way. My goodness. I'm not sure any of my lessons learned had quite that footprint, but that's a good one. Thank you for sharing it with us. So, we are in a unique position as chief product officers because we are not only guiding a team of folks, but we're also producing products in the marketplace that if we're successful are widely adopted and used, and so our impact is really high. Tell me about your philosophy around inclusive products. What role, or should I even say responsibility, do we have as leaders for ensuring inclusivity?
It's always been something that I take quite seriously and to answer your question, a high level of responsibility. I was saying prior to Pinterest, I was working on product leadership at Android, and there we had a platform that was serving billions of people. And there I also led the accessibility team because you understand that it's such a core service that's changing people's lives. We need to make sure that those types of all of the work that we do is accessible to everyone. And so, or at least as many people as we can. I'm going to be humble about that. You're never going to reach everyone, but we put in a lot of effort there. And so that's something that's always been really important to me. Moving to Pinterest, where I feel like we're really trying to build such a positive place and a service for people. I think that inclusion, that diversity, that's a big part of that. And so it's a big part of what we build, and that we really love to build features that really align with that brand wise as well. So we've been investing a lot recently in our different types of technologies where we did everything from hair pattern diversity, skin tone diversity, and our latest one is actually body type diversity. Like it's the reality that you know we don't see enough diversity, honestly, and so for us to build the technology to allow people to use the product, to feel inspired, but to actually feel inspired by images that look like them. Let me tell you, it's really empowering. You feel seen. We see it, by the way, in the numbers too. Look, I love this. We built something that we felt like was the right thing to build. And then we got feedback from users that they loved it. And then we saw the metrics that when they have used those features, their engagement is up by the body type like 66%. These are not, kind of the, in the small and the difference. So I think that tells you how much it matters to people. And we hear that from them as well. They do. They say, we feel seen. I wish this product had been there when I was a young woman, when I was a young girl, even, because I think that would have really helped me build my confidence about not being so different and kind of ostracized in the world. So we've been building all that. I'm going to tell you one thing that's happened though. We built it, we love the feature, but what it's really highlighted is that there isn't enough diverse content. So we can filter it out, we can show it, but the majority of the content, and I've actually been speaking at some conferences on this point, yeah, we want to do this, but speaking to media advertising executives to say, you all need to help. You all need to create more diverse content because that's what we want to show.
I'm really glad you made that point because I couldn't agree more. And I've started to notice, especially with models and with the clothing manufacturers, that they're starting to show the clothing and the real people size as opposed to the model size, and so you're starting to see that emerge. And I really think, especially for the younger generation, is so important um, that inclusivity is there.
That's right.
So
And the one question we get sometimes is, well, in this age of AI, well, should Gen AI just solve that problem? And I'm going to say this, the last thing we should do is actually have Gen AI like creating the marginalized content of marginalized people when all the real imagery is like skinny white women. Honestly, that's wrong. And I won't do that. And I that's why I call out these marketing and advertising executives. I'm like, y'all need to solve this. You need to help
we
us solve
do.
it. It's the right
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, I agree 100%. By the way, on a totally different spectrum, just a really quick story. I've always been a big fan of, you build a platform like a Google Pixel. In my case, this was way back when it was the Danger hip top, and you kind of optimize it for a certain user group, and then what I used to do is just sit back and watch,
Mm.
and it was just so amazing to see what would emerge. And so, to your point about inclusion and diversity, the very first use case that emerged in a big way was for people who couldn't talk. And so they would take their keyboard driven, the hip top was keyboard driven at the time, the touchscreen hadn't been invented, not on a smartphone yet, but they would bring them in, and they would be able to stand. These were young kids, stand in the playground with their peers, and they would sit there and type, and they'd show each other the screen. And I just remember what a fulfilling moment that was, going, look at what we have solved for, and we didn't even know it. So that was such a proud moment anyway.
That's right. Look, I mean, you've changed those people's lives, right? And you should feel proud and you should feel that emotion because I think that's what we seek.
Yeah, so true. Listen, our time has gone so fast, so it's time for me to go to the very last question. And, what would a conversation with a product leader be if I wasn't asking a little bit about AI? My question for you specifically is around the role of product management and the use of AI. And, I guess the ethereal question is, are product managers going to be replaced by bots? Hopefully not, but I want your perspective. But more realistically, what will the impact be of AI on the role of product management this year and then, potentially in 2 years?
Yeah, there's two sides to this. There's one, as a product manager, what can AI unlock for you? As a Pinterest product manager, what can AI unlock for you? And I think that's one state where that's the more short term. And I think there's a lot for us when we're looking at bringing that inspiration to, that inspiration, the deciding what people are going to do with that, the doing of it. It actually means managing billions of pieces of data. And so AI has actually really unlocked a lot of functionality, ideas, feature experiences that we had in the past. We can actually do that now. So a lot of times AI right now in the short term is going to empower people to take those ideas that often were on the shelf where you're like, that was just dreaming. We couldn't actually do that because it's just the pure processing capability wasn't there. I think it can unlock a lot of that. Now, in the short term, and actually some of those features I was talking about like body type and things like that, it did unlock our ability to filter billions of images so that we could. Body type is hard, right? Because it's like, how do you put someone's face, someone's legs? How are we actually classifying all those things? We found a couple things. One is the technology would unlock the capability of filtering. Two is to really deliver a great experience, we had to bring in a lot of human input. Just relying on the technology was actually going to deliver a subpar experience. It was not going to be the experience that we wanted to deliver. So I think in the short term, there is the advantages of AI, but actually a lot of responsibility as with the perspective as a product manager, I think, to really deliver that experience. Now, when you say longer term, how does AI have an impact on the role and the job itself? I actually don't see AI replacing it, at least not for a long time. And part of the reason is when we look at AI right now, it can help you from a starting point when you're, I always say AI should make it so that we're never staring at a blank piece of paper anymore. It'll give you that starting point. But a lot of the role of a product manager is to think about what's next. When I was talking about consumer product management before, right? It's about really looking at people's lives and seeing where you fit in. That's not something that you're going to get an answer for because it hasn't been written before. And so for that reason, I think that there's a lot that AI can help you from a starting point as a product manager. But I think your role, it should just be easier and you should be more empowered to do even more with it. Eventually, hard to say, right? Eventually, how good it gets and how much it can actually replace of that, I'm not sure. But I'd say for the foreseeable future, it's an opportunity.
Yeah, I agree with your sentiment here. So much of product is part art, part science, and it's how you blend the two and make decisions that is really what the human needs. And so I agree. I don't think, I think the human will always be a step or two in front of the AI, and we get to use the AI just to accelerate the pace, if you will, right?
That's right. I think product managers, the best product managers, are incredibly humble. And because they do need to figure out how the solutions that they're building are fitting into the lives of consumers. AI, as I've seen it, is not humble. So I think that there's a lot of room there still that product managers have to fill.
That's a really fun note to end on. AI is not humble. Sabrina, it's been so much fun chatting with you this afternoon. Thank you so much. And again, congratulations on being a finalist in our top award this year.
Thank you so much for having it. Love the conversation, and I really appreciate the honor.
This is SC Moadi again, founder and chair of Products That Count. Thank you for listening to this episode. If you like what you heard, Be sure to leave us a review on your favorite platform, including Spotify and Apple. And please check out our other resources at productsthatcount.org. They're designed to accelerate your product career and make product the most important function in business. Until soon.